Warning: the following video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers and/or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Southern Fried Paranormal with Len Dorman featuring Bones. Catch us on Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Facebook, Stream, and everywhere else you catch your podcasts. And of course, WLFE-DB.com. Now, from the backwoods of southeast Arkansas, right beside the Bayou Bartholomew, the longest bayou on the planet, broadcasting from downtown metropolitan Cane Creek Township, here is your host, Len Dorman.
Here we are. You notice the lighting's a little bit different in the studio. I've rearranged some of the lighting here using a heck of a lot of UV. I don't have the IR, well, they were supposed to be UV, but I believe they were IR bulbs. They are now in the ceiling. They're heating the room while I turn the heat off because of the fan blowing. It's very distracting. And you notice I've got some ghosties and ghoulies behind me now. So that's just all part of it. So I've redone the studio a little bit. It looks like it's daylight, but this is mostly UV light. All black lights. I hope Craig brought something to smoke tonight because we definitely got the black lights cranked up. All we need is a few posters. What say you, Greg?
How you doing, Len? Good to see you.
Doing this great. Now good to see you. You've got an awful wicked poster right off your left shoulder there.
Those are my owls. I can't even point the right way.
That big green thing looks like some things I saw in an alley a couple of times.
No, those are owls. 3 owls.
3 owls. What do 3 owls say? Who?
Who? They're just they're there to watch over me. They're not
watching your back.
They're not my spirit animals or anything, but they're very, very interesting. And when I first saw them, they had to go up. So that's the way it runs. You know, you just the way you feel. The way you feel about something like that, it's spontaneous and you just do it. So,
hey, owls have good night vision, and night vision comes in handy when you're paranormal investigating.
Right. So, you know, and I think it goes further than that too. You know, we need to help them.
Owls are Owls are wise, and I believe you are fairly wise in your field.
Well, we try. There's a whole bunch there's people that are in here from Dark Horse Paranormal right now.
Yes,
they're all
I'm seeing
people that I know. And there's Lynn Monet.
Lit to the Light Productions at Lynn Monet. Ann Young. Hello, everybody.
Good to see you guys.
Me. Hey, it's good to see everybody in here.
They're part of my family. Or I am part of their family. Let's say that. Because they invited me into it. So with much love for me. Because they're one of the groups that does the rotation for the Metaphysical Crossing, which is the other show compared to like the Shadow Hour that I do on Wednesdays. And we do it's a little over an hour. And like I said before, that, you know, it's all double Estes method. It got a little crazy last night with the communication because we had 4 moderators, one for each person that was doing the work. And every time you speak a word, they would write it down. And there were some complete sentences last night that came. Things like that really prompted us to believe that we were connecting more than we ever did before. Basically, the last 2 sessions were like that, but we wanted to verify the first one. So we went ahead and did another one with 4 people doing the Estes all at the same time. And they were all in different locations. So Dark Horse Paranormal was up in Rhode Island. We are down in Northern Illinois, and we had the moderators are all, some of them are from Shadow Hour or Shadow Hunters, and then there's other ones that are just part of the group. Uh, one of them's on here, Anne Marie Young. She's part of the Phoenix one, and for the life of me, I can't think of it. I'm sorry, Anne. But if you want to write it down at the bottom, we can mention that too. So we got Dark Horse Paranormal. We got Anne Marie Young. Led to the Light Productions. That's Reggie Randall. Reggie Randall is another person that's into spirit communication, ITC, immensely. He's one of the best talents around, I think, as far as communication is concerned with spirit. He can go ahead and work a cemetery all by himself. I saw him in the cemetery. We were together. We walked in together, and he just took off talking, and he had a set of like gamer headphones on, and he was hooked up, so he had his recorder, and he had his spirit box, and it was all interconnected, and he could talk through his microphone. So everything that came back to them from spirit not only went to the voice recorder, it also went through the speaker that was there by his in his face. So some of his videos are just utterly amazing. So if you went to Led to the Light Productions and looked at that, it's amazing. If there was, do you do videos on here? Can you do videos on here?
Can I play videos?
Yeah.
On the show?
Yes.
Yes. There is a present button, right.
Okay.
Right below there.
Maybe what we can do.
But I gotta have them on my computer.
Right. So the second show that you're talking about on the 15th, if that's okay.
Yes.
And he'll come in with me, and he will make sure that he has the videos sent to you of the cemetery investigations that we did,
Okay.
and it's absolutely amazing. Look at now you've got Jamie Lynn Keller, and Rising of the Phoenix is Anne Marie Young. So she has a fantastic page, and these people are all very gifted individuals. It's amazing that I'm part of them. I'm very thankful for that. It took me on a different route. I was doing all my psychic mediumship, and I had 2 years under my belt, and I felt I wasn't really that comfortable. And then I ran into a situation where I was doing an Estes method, and we were at one of the places that I mentioned, and I'm not going to mention it again, but one of the places that we talked to them. And we did a double Estes. You know who Mike Wright is, right?
I don't think I've ever met him, but I do know the name.
Okay. Him and I were for our school with GRS. And we did a double Estes in the boiler room or furnace room for our school. And we had white noise coming through. And in the middle of the white noise, there was a ticking. And that wasn't the first time the ticking was on there. And when I heard that, it was like, something's crazy here. For our school, it started up right away. And it was plain as day. And at first, I thought it was Morse code in the white noise. And it was like Mike freaked out. That was it. He ended his session. So I ended it too. So I went, and there's a group of people in ITC, and these are the box builders, and these are the guys that have been doing ITC since the beginning. I've had Bruce Holliday on my show. I've had Jeff Resman. You know Jeff Resman, I believe.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And he was in the ITC back then too. And they all talked to spirit. They did a roundtable show on Facebook, and I had an opportunity to watch it. And I just had to ask him that question. And I went ahead and I said, I gave him the circumstances of what was going on in the white noise and this ticking. And the only noise that I could find anywhere that was very, very similar to that noise happened to be on one of those NASA things, in space. And one of the satellites was going across, and they said right on the show, they said, "This is the noise that space makes." And it was the ticking. And I went, holy crap. So when these guys are all in this round table. So I asked them that question. I said, this is what happened. What do you think this was? You think this was in space? And two or three of them all looked at each other. I'm not even going to mention names because they're all very, very big people as far as ITC is concerned. And they looked at each other and they said, "Isn't that what Frank was all about?" And I threw my hands up and I thought, so then they're all interdimensional beings. What we're speaking to, as far as spirit's concerned, can be the same thing as an alien. You got aliens, ghosts, spirits. You've got star seeds. So, and I know you're sitting there and you're going, wow, this is just like crazy. But at that point, I went ahead and I says, now I know where I'm going. So my path, as far as where I was going with my spirituality was concerned, took a far right, or didn't take a far right. It was a slight right. As far as my mission then was to start to talk, hopefully to my guides, and hear them talk to me. That hasn't really happened yet. I mean, I've had my as they call them, technicians or operators. I've had one of them respond already in out of maybe 4 or 5 sessions where I went ahead and asked him what his name was, and he told me. He said he was Peter. And it was like, and he was an operator. So a lot of this information that I'm giving you came from a lot of these people that I mentioned that are, very, very big sources in the community as far as things that they know. And the operators and the technicians and the operators are different. And you have both of them there. So it's like a big family. So then if you could picture this, when we do a session like this, we visualize a room, and inside the room are the spirit. And then we have our guides in there that operate that particular part of the room, and they sort of shift people back and forth. And we could ask them to move the people up from the back of the room that have something to say when they're not really there. You know what I mean? When you can't hear them because they're in the back and people are
Right.
talking in front of them. So we go ahead and try to do that, and it seems to work. Not all the time, but our guides, my guides, I have three, and they used to work all by themselves before I started to understand this about the technicians and the operators. So that made a big difference as far as where I was going with my journey. And it's sort of amazing, and that's the kind of thing that can keep me pumped. Now, we're both up late, and it's good because I'm sort of pumped. And every time that I get near this stuff, I get pumped. And the people that are over here that are in here commenting and everything, these are all people that understand. They're all part of the family. And it's
Very
it's
cool.
some pardon me?
I said very cool.
It is. And I'm glad I'm very blessed to have them show up.
Yes,
And
you are.
this
So am I.
it's really great, and they're people that have been doing, Dark Horse Paranormal is not only Dark Horse Paranormal, they're also Bigfoot and the Bunny. And
Okay.
it's Chris Carr and Kristen Johnson. And they're two close friends of mine who sort of took me underneath their wing, and we talked and talked, and we shared an idea about putting a show together besides their shows that they already had. And I started Metaphysical Crossing with Nick Sarlo, and he was on the first show, and then pretty much after that he came in about two or three times. We tried different ITC. We did a little of the Gensfeld method in corporation with the Estes method. Uh, I There's different people that'll say different things about the Gensfeld because it's not real. If you said instrumental trans communication, is it an instrument? When you're doing a Gensfeld, because you have ping pong balls over your eyes, and usually they're colored red. So any light that you see is going to be a pink color behind there. And you can put headphones on, and you just lay back and you just visualize through the pink. And after a while, automatically, you'll start to think things and imagine things. And people, Greg, and Dana Newkirk incorporated the Gensfeld like the day after they had done the God helmet experiments. Now, I'm still tricked out by it. I am quite satisfied with what I'm doing. I haven't got to the point of being frustrated, point of wanting to go ahead and putting something on my head that's going to go ahead and possibly change something that's still left. And I'm not dealing, all these other people over here, they're completely attached. I'm at that stage where I've gotten hit so much in things that, you know, uh, my neck is super bad, and my brain from concussions. I've had three. I've had one really bad one. I was out for 13 hours, and that kind of thing. And that's the kind of thing too that you remember, and you remember it vividly when you're out like that, because I think that I had smashed my temple. I was playing ice hockey and I got hit with a puck in a game right here. And this was before they wore helmets. We never wore helmets and we fought like crazy and we had great league. And part of the problem stemmed from the fact that I had taken too many hits. So that time that I was out for that long, I visually remember it was like a black and white, and it was like a spring type configuration that was large, and it kept on getting smaller. And on that spring was running a ball. And the ball kept on going on that track around and around and farther down and farther down. And it kept on coming at me. Like, and I have never mentioned this to anybody. The people that are here that are part of my family have never heard this. And it was plain as day what had happened. And that's one of those things that, at the time didn't make too much sense. But when I hear of some of the, they N are NDEs, and I want to say Chris and Kristen had a gentleman on, or somebody did, and I can't, that's why my mind's the way it is. I can't remember which one it was, but I should put my glasses on. Maybe somebody's making a comment about it.
Oh, we do have one question from Jamie Lynn Keller. Are you going to the Glen Beulah Paranormal Conference next September?
Where's that at?
That's a new one on me. You'll have to ask Jamie that. Jamie, can you give us a few details of where that is?
Glen Beulah?
And Stephen Miller Paranormal. Hi, guys.
You got more people coming. So Stephen Miller is a gentleman. You know Stephen? Lenny?
Oh, yeah, he was on the show a couple weeks ago. Yes.
Lenny's a great, or Stephen's a great Gettysburg man. I enjoy all of his posts.
Yes, he is. That's what,
when he's on there, and you can keep it this way for a while. This is okay. It's by Sheboygan, she says. I don't know yet. I would like to, but it depends on what's going on. I don't have any idea. Yeah, Sheboygan's not very far at all. How many days is it, and what are they doing? They need any speakers? Because I would go ahead and speak if they need one, but I don't know what I would talk about, and I don't know even if I make any sense. But this business about these near death experiences that I heard of, it's sort of connected with me to a certain extent, and I don't know how far, because they said that I really had hurt my brain, and they were really concerned. I was in the hospital for 3 days back then, and I couldn't move my head. They had me in, so I was immobilized. And it took me probably 2 days before I could talk. That kind of thing. So it was really a strange experience, to say the least. And I know, Dave Schrader. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. If you, Jamie Lynn, if you know who I could talk to, that would be great. That would be awesome. Because I'm going to be doing one in March, and it's really not. It's advertised, but I have to verify everything about what's going to be going on about it before I say anything. It's going to be a big one, but it's going to be on the east, sort of like on the East Coast. Uh, besides that,
Okay.
I don't know. You got any questions, Lenny? Can I call you Lenny?
Well,
You, you prefer
some
Len?
people do.
It's up to you.
Doesn't it doesn't matter.
You
A lot of people call me expletives.
That's funny.
And it's Len. Don't let the long hair fool you.
Mr. Len Gorman used to be on the south side of Chicago and used to do a lot of the haunts of a lot of the locations like Resurrection Cemetery, Chet's Melody Lodge. We all
Mm-hmm.
were you together when we were in the ballroom? What was the name of it again? That burned.
Um, Across the street from the Irish Legend. What is that name of that? Uh,
Brook, something Brook.
uh,
Mellowbrook?
Meadowbrook? Meadowbrook?
Oh, Mellowbrook, maybe. I don't, if anybody knows, put it in here, please. But it's,
Well,
we had
Gary,
our
Stephen got it. Willowbrook.
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 We had
That's
the
it.
last Chicago convention there, and like a week later, it had burned down.
Right.
And that was a real wild time. That was a great.
You and Ursula got in there, and the place couldn't handle it.
Well, I think Ursula got in there, and the place couldn't handle it because Ursula's a wonderful lady. She still is.
I wouldn't say anything bad about it.
No,
Uh,
there's nothing to say bad about her to
yeah.
me.
No.
And it's just like everybody else. I just, if you learn anything about the paranormal in the community, you have to go ahead and put all those little things to the side and concentrate on providing love and trust with the people around you. Just like on your team, you always have to have somebody watch your back. This isn't.
That's
This
it,
isn't.
and that's
This is. It's. So things may be changing for some of us within the next 2 weeks, and then and
okay.
it's not. It's just the way it is as far as who we're working with and where we're going.
Okay, Jamie Lynn
Much
Keller has
love.
got to go. Don't be sorry, Jamie. Just rest up, have a good night's sleep, and we'll see you next time.
She says, "I hope Gail is doing better."
She is. She's still having blood pressure issues. They cannot get right. She takes one medication, throws the heart into some kind of irregular heartbeat. Sometimes her blood pressure drops down too low. Sometimes it goes up too high. So I think it's just a matter of getting her medications correct is all it is. So everybody's going to want to keep an eye on it.
Sometimes it takes a little longer.
Uh-oh. Okay.
That's that looks like we got a troll in there. We got a troll, 2 trolls, 3 trolls in there. There you go. How the heck did they get in here? Sorry
That
about
is
that.
probably. I blocked them, and you can block them if you can. I just blocked them here. I am having trouble with that. It's a lot of people are. A lot of that porn comes from China. It's China porn, and they're attacking different areas. A group tries to get together, like we are right here. There's 8 people watching, and for some reason the Chinese start sending a bunch of Chinese porn into the chat, So, what can you do?
Jamie, Lynn, love and hugs. Have a good evening.
And thank you
And
for all
then,
your thought and prayers, Jamie Lynn.
and then Lynn Monet says, "Yum, fried chicken. I want the wings."
Uh, I found some chicken wings earlier this week, Monday, I believe, at the grocery store at a rather cheap price. We cut them up into, the drumettes and the winglets, whatever you call them. Good size wings, too. We're talking about stuff, like
Oh
this.
wow, wow.
And we filled a bag up about 3/4 way with these cheaper wings. And we put them in the freezer, and we will be serving them up at the Super Bowl. Well, of course,
Oh
not at
wow.
the Super Bowl, but in our living room while we're watching the Super Bowl. The
And
wife and I
you
watch a lot of
both.
football. I actually
So,
took her. I actually took her to the Superdome when we were in New Orleans. And speaking of New Orleans, a little segue here. I will be at Fear Fest
oh
this
wow,
next October in New Orleans.
wow.
Phoenix Jensen is the chairwoman for that event, and she wanted me there. I will be appearing with her in Hot Springs, hopefully in April at the Gypsy Soul Fair.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. What
And
does that
her
entail?
and I are. It is a lot of uh, gym people, the energy readings, witches. There's not that many paranormal investigators go there, but she goes there to. There's several different Gypsy Soul Fairs. One in Hot Springs, Arkansas, in the spring. Later in the year, they are in Texas at various locations, and they're also in between in Oklahoma. So I'm planning on. It's either going to be late March or April. They haven't really set the event yet to that Hot Springs location. It's usually held in a very old hotel that is haunted, and I will be working with her paranormal group out of Texas, investigating that old hotel in Hot Springs. There's also a statue of Al Capone at one of the restaurants in Hot Springs. Her and I want to talk to the people in the restaurant so we can investigate that statue of Al Capone, because I don't know if you remember this, Greg. Al Capone does not like because of what I did with Bruno Rodi, which was one of his bomb builders back in the 20s.
Okay, where did you do that at?
So Al and I have. Where did I run into Bruno Rodi?
Yeah.
I did that at uh, the Ethel's party,
Okay.
which is right on the edge of Chinatown.
Okay.
Uh, our friend Dale went in there several times years ago, and he couldn't quite crack who it was, and he knew it was haunted, but he didn't quite figure out who it was. And it took me some good old detective work. So I put my Batman cowl on and called the funeral parlor that used to own the place. It was 90 years. It was a mortuary before it was a bar. And come to find out that Bruno Rodi died, and his funeral was there at that funeral parlor on the edge of Chinatown, 26th Street in Wentworth,
Wow.
a month before I was born. And just as to note, the 26th Street Gang is the organization that Al Capone took over when he left New York and came to Chicago,
Right.
and is one of the very few active mob gangs still in Chicago. Most of those in the 90s got crushed and ran out of town. 26th Street gang is still there.
They were all in that hotel, right? Is that where Capone lived? Where was
Where
that at?
Capone lived, yes.
On 26.
Oh, shoot.
Maybe not. Maybe further
That
south.
was, yeah, I think it was a little bit further south. 26th and Wentworth is across the street from the big technical school.
Yes.
There where they're trying to build up the part of south end of town. Right there on the Ike.
It was
And
Bruno. It was ITT was the name of the school. Illinois Technical something. Yeah. And
Illinois
that's on
Technical
the
Institute school something.
Building on the east side of the Rhine.
Yes.
That old brown.
Yeah,
it's like a brownstone.
Ethel's party was, and I do emphasize was. Don't go in there expecting to get a beer. They closed before I left Chicago and moved on to a bigger, better bar. And to my knowledge, that building is still empty. And I had to go in there and kind of clean out the Bruno spirit. I didn't try to exercise him completely out and away, and wherever they go when you start trying to do that to a spirit. I just got him where he could leave. He was stuck there, and he's a much happier spirit, and he kind of bounced around wherever he wants to go now.
Right. That's awesome.
So I wasn't going to try to get him stuck in another place. I forgave him for the couple of times he attacked me, and the person I was working with forgave him. And he was holding about 20 some odd spirits there hostage, including several women and one particular female child. Who there was a horrible wreck on the Ike between what we were talking about, the school and the bar, quite a few years ago before I got to Chicago, and the whole family was wiped out. But apparently, she may have lived a few seconds or a minute or two longer. The family went in one direction, and she ended up going to the only place she could find where people were, and it just so happened to be this former funeral home turned into a bar. And she ended up Bruno captured her so he wouldn't be by himself and stuck there. So we went in there and convinced Bruno to move on a little bit. We talked him into releasing those other spirits so they could go where they needed to go. So hopefully the little girl is with her family now. Oh, and by the way, for everybody that's in the chat room, Lynn says has to be a speaker in West Virginia. Very good. It's a good thing to be a speaker. It shows responsibility, shows knowledge. So my compliments. May you have a very good speaking engagement. I'm sure you'll knock them dead.
That's awesome.
Or should we say knock the dead into speaking? Is what we're after.
We don't want to knock her dead.
And by the way, everybody, Greg was saying some of the places I've been, including Ethel's party that I was talking about. I am the only person that I know of that ever went into Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. I was dropped off by my wife at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. She picked me back up at 8 a.m. the next morning. And I spent the night in that cemetery alone. All night.
How long ago was it?
Just before I left. It was spring 2015.
Because I think that's didn't we filmed did Chuck's film down there, 1,000 words in 16, I think. His
that was
video,
after I left.
yeah, it was on the Madonna.
Mhm.
So
I believe 2016 after I left, because I left.
did you have a gun on you?
What I get? uh, no, I had I had grease paint.
Okay.
I
So
was
you
in dark
camouflage
clothing.
yourself.
I grease painted by hands. You could not see my hands. I had grease paint all over my face, including my eyelids, and darkened the beard completely. And yes, I was. Unless you shined a flashlight directly on, there was no moon. The moon was a crescent at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and by 10:30, it was gone. There was
Well,
nothing. The only light in the cemetery was the light from the highway,
right.
and that's it. I was, unless you shined a flashlight on me, I was invisible.
Yeah, when we were
A
there, it
paranormal
was
group
pretty
came in
dark.
there.
It was really dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with no moon, you couldn't see the graves. You couldn't see where you were going, uh, or you could. It was just total blindness. And I got my night vision going, and where I could see. A paranormal group stumbled in there at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I hid behind a tree because I had a couple of flashlights. I pulled out my flashlight. I blinded three of them that were off to one side by shining my bright flashlight in their eyes, totally blinding them. And the leader was a few steps away from them. And I just jumped very quickly without making a sound and got in his face. I said, "Who the hell are you, and what the hell are you doing here?" Uh, he almost pissed his pants because I was 20 feet away from him, and all of a sudden, within a second, I was nose to nose with him. And he said, "How the hell did you do that? Because if you'd had a knife, you could have stabbed me 3 or 4 times before I even knew you were there." He said, "And I'm an active duty Marine. I want to know how you did that." And I said, "Well, I went to Troy University, the Fort Benning, Georgia branch, and Fort Benning's the home of the Rangers.
Right.
A lot of the people I went to college with were Rangers." And so you pick up things
Tricks of the trade.
like how to
Tricks of,
move,
right.
like how to camouflage yourself correctly at night where nobody can see you, and how to move very stealthily. And he was correct. I could have reached out, and I could have plucked his eyebrows out with a pair of tweezers. I was that close. To say nothing if I'd had a bayonet or a Bowie knife, I'd have killed him, and he'd never known I was there.
I'm surprised that none of the Rangers showed up. The Forest Preserve people. You know what I mean? The way they are. But what is
Actually,
this?
they did. I was surprised they didn't show up when that paranormal group came in, but they were there about 11 o'clock or so, and moved on. And I said I was totally invisible. I covered the little window on the cameras so I could have a camera running, and you couldn't see the camera except for the IR light that I was throwing out. Now, if they'd had IR binoculars, they could have seen the whole area was flooded with IR light.
Oh,
But you had to have some kind of night vision to see the IR light.
when do you do the Estes?
Uh,
Do you see anything when you're channeling? That's up here. Yes, I do.
Led to the light. says that he is drawn to the Fultons. I can ask them a question. Sometimes when you go to the Fultons, you hear male and female voices,
Well, that's Reggie again now. Blood of the
and
light. We have to go. We have to go to Bachelor's then.
the Fulton, I believe,
It's the big monument.
Fulton is the biggest plot in there. Yes, and it was the biggest plot in the Grove. The the Patrick plot is probably the second largest, and it's got uh, depends on who you ask. It's got anywhere from 5 to 7. Some people have said 8 people buried there, including uh, Libby Mae Humphreys.
Wow.
As you know, I found out that the White Lady of Bachelor's Grove is Amelia Patrick Humphrey, and I emphasize her middle name because it is the Patrick plot. Uh, when John Humphrey and Amelia's firstborn child died in 1865, they had not they had he just started the little town where the Humphrey house is located,
Okay.
and their cemetery wasn't available for burial till 1869. So they had to put Libby Mae into the Patrick plot there at Bachelor's Grove, which is why Amelia came there every night just before dusk, and that's where the picture was taken by Dale in 1992, I believe.
Judy Huff.
Judy Huff.
And we see in our meetings, we have both Judy and her sister Mary.
Uh,
They're
nice people.
They're very, very nice people.
And she got lucky. She got lucky with that one photo, and it took me quite a while to find out who that is and to get Amelia talking, because she wasn't very talkative to start with, and I had to get her talking. And it's with Libby Mae, she had actually learned how to talk and how to communicate in English, even though she was 11 months and 4 days old when she died. So yes, spirits do learn.
Back to the question that was asked. Do you see anything when you are channeling on the Estes? And I think that we talked about this last night a little bit, and I start seeing buildings. Sometimes I see fields. Uh, there's different things, trees, a lot of trees, a lot of big trees, things like that. I think it's a connection.
Well, I got a question about that. Are you seeing places you're familiar with that you've been to, or are you seeing places that you've never been to?
I've never been to.
That you've
Never.
never been to. That
And
that
I
happens
don't
to
know
me
where,
sometimes.
I don't know where they are, but I imagine that
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen
Exactly.
is we're going to be driving along somewhere, and you're going to see one of these buildings, and you're going to drive right off the road and hit a tree. You know, because that's how startling
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be. But when you remember them, and I don't know, I had some that night, last night when we were doing it, and we brought up a house, and we brought up the siding on the house, and it seemed to be in the nucleus of the group that was doing the double Estes. The people that were doing it, like I don't remember exactly how many, but Kristen saw it, and she, and then I think maybe Anne Marie, me. I can't remember if Chris saw it or not, but it's. Stephen Miller.
Greg, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Let me ask you a question about this. Last night, did you at any time last night while you were channeling see a path, uh, maybe 4 feet wide, with a little bit of a higher ground on the left side? On the right side was not a huge drop off. We're not talking about the side of a mountain, 8-10 feet drop off, and there was ladies with really long brown dresses on. And one part they were walking by, there was a place where the path had washed down into the lower level and was almost a hole sitting there. And everybody kind of the hole because the path narrowed down from about 4 feet to maybe 2.5 feet around this wash spot. And this is nothing I've ever seen before.
I have a path.
And I was walking down the path behind these ladies. What were y'all seeing something like that? And I just picked up on it, or
I
did y'all have
have
anything to do with that?
When we started talking about before we brought the building up, I told them that I usually have a path, but it's going up, and what it does is it goes up between these flower beds, and they're not really flower beds because there's a combination of flowers in there. I try to stop and look at them close, but I keep on moving, and then I come up and go around the corner. And when I go around the corner, I go up to the side of the mountain like, and there's a door. And that's usually where I stop. I used to go inside it, and I did that quite a bit on a lot of my meditations because that's where I would go to find things. And I have a spirit animal that's still in that. And it's a stairway that goes down. It's carved into the side of the stone, goes all the way down, and at the bottom there's another pond, and in the pond, and then there's a waterfall. The waterfall drops into the pond, and inside there's a big koi, and she's black, orange, and white, and koi's a big goldfish like. Beautiful, and she's one of my spirit animals. She's been there for a long time. And then I can go down one hallway, not a hallway. It's like going into a tunnel, and I can go ahead and go all the way through that tunnel. If I run into anybody, I can talk to them. And then when I get to the outside, I break right into this town. It's like a big village. And that's where I see a lot of people that don't have faces. There's people that don't have faces, and then there's people that do have faces. And it was my job when I went in there to go ahead and communicate with them. And I probably ended up communicating with probably about 10 of them. The best part that I had where I communicated the most, I was more in my element, was there was a big house, and in the back of the house they had this big swimming pool. And I used to go there, and I used to lounge around by the swimming pool, and the girls used to come there that were part of the town. And they, that was, you got to talk to them, but you could see them. And I think the difference is the other ones were strictly spirit that you weren't supposed to communicate with. They were on a different mission. They were going in a different direction, whatever it happened to be. It was a little strange, but that's the way it was at that place. I still have to go back there.
All right, Greg, it's halfway. and I got to do a little bit of advertising.
Okay. If you guys hang in, you hang in. Otherwise,
Uh,
we'll see you guys later on. Thank you very much for being here.
hey,
Because I don't.
this won't take about 30, 40 seconds because I
Okay.
don't have that much to do.
Okay.
One of them is the Gypsy Soul Holistic Fair that I said. This is an advertisement for the Fresno, Texas one that I'll be appearing in Hot Springs, Arkansas, hopefully in April. So I'd like to just say hello to all my friends at Gypsy Soul Holistic Fair. And if you're near the Texas, the Oklahoma, or Hot Springs, Arkansas, you can stop by there and check them out. But then the big one down here is the FearFest Paracon, October of next year, obviously. You can see who's going to be there. Greg, you may recognize some of these names: the Parallax,
Right.
the Paranormal Swamp Investigations. That's a very unique show if you watch it.
That's Howard Petrie.
And
We've
yes,
got.
he is an interesting gentleman.
He is. He's an amazing guy.
We're not that far apart. Yes, he
No,
is.
you're not. He's.
No, not what.
I watched him do an investigation of the cemetery in Mandeville, Louisiana. And Mandeville is the home of an old friend of mine from the military, Jerry Garrett. So when he was doing the investigation, I asked him if he knew the guy, and he says, "Yeah, sees him every other day." And it was like, wow, I wish he would contact me, because the last time we saw each other, we were in a trailer in Ozark, Alabama. I was in crew chief training, and he had just came back from Vietnam and as a door gunner. So, and he had the real hat too. He had the black hat for, I can't remember now. I'm running in another issue with remembering the name of the group. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that are on that are going to be really neat. Here's your Phoenix.
Well, the committee chairwoman, of course, is Phoenix Jansen.
She's a good girl, amazing woman.
She is. Yes, absolutely. That's a good word for her. She's very amazing. I will be working with her in Hot Springs, doing some investigations there with her just reformed team. And I have told her that I will be going down to FearFest. Gail loves New Orleans as much as I do, so she's actually looking forward to it. Be the wife and I both going down there, and if I'm not, in the convention center or doing something with Phoenix and friends, I'll be poking my head around some haunted place. I definitely want to go back to Lafitte's blacksmith shop and do a little work there. Sometimes there's people there, but if you catch it during the week, it's not that big of a crowd there. It's kind of away from Bourbon Street, and sometimes you can see John Lafitte standing by the fireplace. It's got a two-sided fireplace, open on both sides.
Yes.
And sometimes you can come there. And sometimes he will speak, sometimes he will not. Sometimes he'll just scare the piss out of you. And, that's just the way it is. It's a very interesting bar. The bartenders and managers say sometimes there's things go in the night. They have a lady there that sometimes appears and scares the bejesus out of them while they're doing the paperwork after the bar is closed. Of course, what scares me is you go in there on Friday or Saturday night, and they have it's a piano bar. You have the piano player playing popular piano songs, and a whole bunch of drunk tourists try to sing. That's the scariest thing about the place.
Holy crap. Drunk tourists.
Yes, the Lafitte's blacksmith bar. They have a very lousy hurricane. That's not their specialty. It's not very good. Very high alcohol. If you want, if you're in a really bad mood and you just want to forget where you are from their hurricanes, you'll forget where you are in a hurry. But their specialty is what they call a grape drink. It's if you've ever seen the slushies from 7-Eleven and got you a great one, this is what it is. Except it's got a lot of rum in it.
Oh, wow.
A lot of rum. And you drink a couple of those and you're sitting down all relaxed, trying to contact John Lafitte. You know, will you speak to us, John Lafitte? Tell us some of your pirate stories from the past. Did you really help Andrew Jackson win the Battle of New Orleans in 1814? And if you drink a third one about this point, you forget where you are. John Lafitte would be asking you, do you know that you are in New Orleans and you're talking to a ghost? Do you remember that? And you're going, because those grape drinks will knock your socks off.
That's really neat, because when you said 1814, immediately that song, remember 1814, we took a little trip along the mighty
down the mighty Mississippi
river, down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we fought the bloody British in a town in New Orleans. We fired our guns and they ain't equipped to running. Fired once more.
You know some.
I can't remember all of it.
You know some. Yeah, I can't remember all of it. You know some of the story there, right?
You what?
Some of the story there. John Lafitte was supposedly. Now this is all. This could be speculation. It could be opinion. It could be just stories people like to tell. You know how that goes. Yeah. But some of the story goes that he was a double agent. He was working with the British and suggested that the British attack New Orleans because they could basically block up the Mississippi and prevent the U.S. from expanding west of the Mississippi, and also stop up a lot of their trade coming down the Mississippi and choke up the western territories of the U.S.
Right.
And he suggested it, and the general said, this sounds like a good idea. So he started planning for it. He told them where to be, when to be there, when the weather would be all right for them to be there, and the tides were right. So he pretty well got the British general down to a certain time. John Lafitte goes to New Orleans, finds Andrew Jackson, and tells him exactly when the British are going to be there. So Andrew Jackson leaves, raises an army, gets the cannons, and amazingly enough, he hacked a road through swamps, through forests. I would say hills and dales, but there's not many hills down there if you've been in the country. But there's a lot of forests and a lot of swamps, and got the guns there that you were just singing about.
I wasn't really singing because I can't sing. But that song,
I sound like a cat in heat.
Well, you remember Russell's Barbecue on off of North Avenue and Thatcher? That's up on the northwest side. North Avenue and Thatcher.
Vaguely.
Thatcher's
okay.
Pretty close to First Avenue, I think. Thatcher was the Thatcher's Woods, where those two girls died. That was right there.
Okay.
And they just did a
All
They
right.
just did a special on them again because, it's unsolved. Reggie should look into it. That's for sure. Reggie uses a lot of his abilities and asks a lot of questions of his spirits that he talks to at his house, help him understand things like that. And he's been involved in a few cases where they found bodies. You know,
Wow.
I had that close friend, Dr. Chuck Kennedy from Project Psi, that Chuck Williams introduced me to about maybe 7 years ago, something like that. And he's the one that has his group of psychics, and they're the ones that handled or stopped that big human trafficking last year. And they found 500 people in trailers that they were going to move, and they actually saved
Wow.
probably all of them. Yeah, but he's and if he's ever listens to any of this, prayers for him because he suffered a stroke. Now
Hmm.
he's sort of incapacitated, so he's
Mhm.
trying to get up again. And he has done a lot of good, uh, combining the science with the paranormal end of it, and he's an unbelievable gentleman. And I'm glad he's my friend. And wasn't for Chuck Williams, I don't know what I would have done. I would have never met him probably, but I did.
Mhm.
All the way to the first Paracon that I was at, I went over and started talking to him. Didn't even really know who he was, and we started just a relationship from then. And he took me in, and we would meet him. We're going to probably see him in January, and we go down and spend an afternoon with him and talk with him and see what's going on. Sometimes I do some like remote viewing, or I've done. I was the last one he brain mapped as far as your psychic abilities were concerned. So that was interesting. After that, we did some past life regressions, which were just unbelievable. Uh, I actually, in a past life, crossed my father in the Pacific in World War II in 45. I was on a ship, and I want to say it was like a cruiser size. And I know my father was on the Longshore, which was a destroyer. And this all happened in the middle of this past life. And it wasn't just once. It turned out that in another life, I did the same something very similar, only I was on the beach and they were out there
Hmm.
shelling the beach. So it was like I ran into like three or four of them, and he was always saying that I was, all my past lives, I was like a warrior, which, I don't know how to believe that, but he says to me, he says, well, what do you think the pain in your neck's all about? And I looked at him and I said, what do you mean? And he went ahead and said to me, you mentioned once or twice about the Bataan Death March. And you know what happened there.
Oh yes. I don't know if everybody in the chat room knows what happened there, but
Well,
they can look it up. That's a too long a story for this show.
right, right. But that's what happened.
Wow.
And that's more than once because it goes all the way back. I was always involved in that kind of stuff. I was always worrying. I don't know why, but I do have friends like the friends that are in here that are, and they say I bring it up occasionally too, even when I go ahead and channel. So it's crazy, but it is what it is. You can't change any of it. I don't intend on changing or trying to change any of it. It's 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 part of my spirituality. It's everything that's part of me. You know, I still
You and
love
I are
everybody.
too old to change.
Oh, I'll tell you what. They changed my meditation for my tremors and my neck, and I started
Mhm.
taking it this morning. And if we would have been on 2 hours or over an hour doing this last night before I took this medicine, I would have been dying because it's that bad. It gets crazy, but
Mm.
but you know what?
Yeah.
Investigations. I wish the heck we were doing a bunch of them again this year, and I want to I want to go back to Edinburgh Manor in Iowa. Uh, There we have a couple places. April 22nd, we're doing a Paracon. It's called Spirits in the Spring, and it's going to be up in Broadhead, Wisconsin, and it's going to be at the Broadhead Manor, which is a old school, and it's extremely haunted. And we did a bunch there in the fall,
Okay.
and Nick Sarlo, who runs Shadowhunters. He does all the filming, so he's done a lot of filming for that, and we're going to have a great time there. It's going to be very very interesting.
Sounds like.
It's going to have a lot of people. I in that okay in that school, and this is another. It's not that long of a story, but when they brought
Okay.
civilization or the town of Broadhead to Broadhead, the Broadhead Manor to Broadhead, Wisconsin. The reason they built it there, this town, was because it was by the railroad. And when
Of
they came
course.
through with
Like
the
all towns
railroad,
in that area.
they went right through two or three Indian burial grounds
Of
and
course.
just cut right through them. So we're in the process of doing this investigation, and um, Bill, who happens to be the owner of Broadhead Manor, I can't remember his last name, but he's a great guy, and we have a long hallway that goes down, and it was like they would be classrooms or individual rooms like that, and it's probably maybe 150, 200 feet long, about 30, 35 yards, and he has lights all set up, and he does smoke, so it's sort of like scrying in the smoke because the smoke stays even. So, if you had a spirit come through the room and they went through, you could see them go through the smoke. I started taking pictures, and I got a picture of later on. I found out I got a picture of a man with sort of a head that went back to almost like what you saw in the Egyptians, where it went almost to a point. But this guy at the back end of it had like a headdress. He had like feathers sticking up. You know what I mean? Like that.
Okay.
And he had the face of a like an Indian. And at first I didn't pick it up because it's not it's off by a quarter. So it's off to this side. So then once I turned the picture over, you could see it plain as day. And it appeared to me to be like an Aztec. Now we found out down the road when we were back there a couple times that, back in the day, the Aztecs were all the way up into Minnesota. They were all the way up into the East Coast. They were the Indians before the Indians.
Right.
And
They were one of the earliest major races, and they at least traded over most of North America. If you again of speculation, they've done some what do they call that, NIDAR, where they put radar on the
right,
ground. That in Georgia, looking at the ground underground, there's disturbed area that looks like a very large city. It built in the style of the Aztecs, and this is in the little bit north of center of Georgia. I think between Macon and Atlanta, this place was built. You've also got Fort Mountain, Georgia, way up north of well north of Atlanta, where stones were placed in the shape of a fort, and they have no idea who put that together.
yeah,
Had the 5 points, where you could have people in the point.
they they brought it to my attention in the chat that I was talking about originally Native Americans, and then they were talking
Mm-hmm.
about the First Nation people. Thank you, Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
That's Kristen. Uh, and then good old Reggie says, Len, I sent you a friend request on Facebook. After you accept it, I will be able to invite you right into my group. And then
And
he'll
I
give
have
you
accepted it already.
okay, then he'll give you the little aluminum hat. You got to have that little aluminum hat that you wear. It's got the little antenna on the top of it. I just love to do that. And it's all real to me. I just love goofing around. He's a great guy. Tinfoil, he goes, tinfoil. It's aluminum. It's got to be aluminum. It's just like what the
You,
alien space.
where do you buy real tinfoil anymore? Isn't it all aluminum now?
I think it is. I don't think it's tinfoil. Hasn't been tinfoil for a long time. Not since Reynolds bought it all.
Yeah, they're strictly aluminum.
Boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, these guys are up. They're really still going strong. Well, ha ha ha.
Yes, they
Aluminum
are.
foil.
I, I'm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
When's the
I'm
last
impressed.
time?
There's a
When's the
great
last
chat
time
going
this
on
happened?
tonight.
When's the last time you had this like this?
Oh, with this many people chatting, very, very few and far between. Of course, I'm now getting where I've been this for just about a year now, and there's very few times I've had this many people in this late with this much chat.
Well, Dark Horse says we love you guys.
Well, we love all of y'all. I mean, this is
That's
kind of a big
that's
happy
Kristen
family.
Kristen Johnson. Fantastic lady.
Uh, I've got
And
I've got friends all over paranormal, and I love everybody. I try not to say anything bad about people uh, unless they richly deserve it. But I try to be friendly and open minded, seeing different methods, different ways of doing things, and you know I can't knock any of it. And why? That's somebody else's research. Uh, let me at least learn about it
yes,
before you say anything bad about it. I was not put here by God to be a judge or a critic. And if he wants me to do either job, he's better send me a paycheck, because I'm not going to sit here and judge people or criticize people for free.
I want to just mention something about
Go ahead.
Kristen Jackson. Her son Jacob's been really sick. He's got Crohn's.
Uh-oh.
So she's been up
Ooh.
with him for a long time, and she's obviously still up here because I don't think this is Chris. Because Chris is sick, her boyfriend, her partner. But everybody just say a prayer for Jacob. It's so hard on moms and just raising kids, let alone to have a problem. So, all the prayers we can send, we'll send. And I think everything will be fine. They've always been around, that. They're always around your house. They've always been around the family. They take care of you. I mean, everybody in this whole room that was here tonight, everybody knows Kristen. I met Jacob, and it was like, wow. Hey, buddy, how you doing? That kind of thing. It was really neat.
Right.
And he's a cool kid. And it was like, wow, good looking kid. She's proud of him. He's doing a good job. And that's all you can say. I know with my grandkids out in Seattle, it's like the school is a petri dish of different diseases. Every day they go to school, they can come home with something different.
Most schools are.
Jeez.
Most schools are. That's why Tuesday I got my final COVID shot. I've met one of the Galen. Neither one have had it, and personally, I don't want it. So I'm fully immunized.
Well, you have your feet started to web or anything like that in your hands? That's
No.
The first that the
No.
feet will be the first.
I've not become magnetic either. They had that one where people say when you got inoculated with the COVID vaccine, stainless steel spoons would stick to your forehead, or you became magnetic or something.
Well, I
haven't had that happen either.
I have magnetic bracelets. Okay, and I've been wearing them all the way back from when I first started to fish muskies professionally, and that was in 2000. And for 15 years, I wore magnets, and I can do tricks at restaurants with those. All I have to do is go ahead and go over the top of the table by the silverware, and I can pull all the silverware over to my side of the table. It's like, hey,
oh boy,
that's a cool trick you got there. Well,
mm-hmm.
That was neat.
Do you drink or not?
No. I quit drinking in 1984.
Wow.
They put me away for I think it was 12 weeks.
Wow. I don't know how you would handle New Orleans if you've never been there.
It doesn't. I'd be aware of what was going on, but I have no interest. I just don't. The closest thing I come to is every once in a while I'll have an NA beer, and that's it. And that's the only reason I have the NA beer is so I can spit back in the conversation.
There you go.
Because you know how people get when
See,
they're drunk.
if I was down there, oh yeah, I've
They
worked in
just,
bars.
you know, and you go, what? So it's been,
Yeah, you,
if I wasn't for that, I wouldn't have anything. I wouldn't have been alive. I would have been gone.
mhm.
It was that crazy because I was really good at that. There was nobody around that come close to me. I had learned well, and
Mhm.
there was no playing around. If you go into a tavern, you're going in there to get loaded. You're not going in there for one beer and then you're leaving. You're going to get a good buzz going before you walk out the door,
Mhm.
and that was just the way it
I,
was.
nowadays, I'm just the cool old guy sitting at the bar, nursing a drink, minding his own business,
I've been to
and
bars.
that's how I go to a bar.
I have no, it's not
See,
that, it's not the same life. You know what I mean? You know, you learn. I'm not
mhm.
saying that
I
I
did.
don't have friends, that drink, and I
Mhm.
do. You know, I'm going to a party Saturday night, the 60th birthday party for one of my partners that I fish muskies with for all that time, and him and I were like close like that, and it was the same thing. He was great.
Now that's a good rule
Yep.
that Dark Horse Paranormal just put in the chat. So you're not fool around with a paranormal rule.
What about the food though, Kristen? Are you
Uh,
talking about going to Taco Bell and eating a bunch of tacos or with beans
mhm.
and then doing a lot of EVP sessions? Probably clear everybody. They would probably clear the room out really fast. Spirits would leave first. First sign that they could sense that they'd be gone.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the thing about New Orleans. You got some great food. If you don't want to drink, there's still plenty of places to eat, and it's a great variety of foods. Uh, so it's a fun place to be.
I'd
And
love to.
they got a
I'd
big
love to
point
go
about
in.
not drinking. Hmm.
I would do the same thing. You know,
I try not to drink in a paranormal investigation unless I'm in something like Lafitte's blacksmith bar, where if you want to sit there, you got to have a drink in front of you. They'll ask you to leave.
my point about drinking and being on an investigation is the fact that it numbs your senses. And
Yes, it does.
before, without any equipment, you can go in and investigate a location just merely by your senses.
Right.
And if you go ahead and you do that, then you're sort of cutting your chances down on actually making any contact or knowing that something's going on
Exactly.
when everybody else is, they're going crazy and you're over there like going, I don't hear anything, I don't smell anything, because they're,
That's why if you go into a place like Lafitte's Blacksmith Bar or what is that other place the other side of the church? Uh, I'll think of it in a minute. If you go in there, they will ask you to get a drink. So what you do, you have some people are teetotalers and some people who are drinking and maybe helping you out a little bit, and you just swap cups every once in a while.
yeah, I merely would drink club soda and a twist of lemon too if I was going to go that route.
Oh yeah,
If I didn't like
I would. I'd drink I'd ask them to give me a cola and put a straw in it, a stirrer type straw, where it looks like I'm drinking a bourbon and Coke, but I'll got straight Coke.
Did you
Because
ever did you ever do a did you ever do a spirit box on the bar?
uh, it's usually too noisy in Lafitte's place. I've done an Echo Vox session, with the headphones on. And there's so many people now talking into a phone. They've got earbuds. Here maybe not headsets like these, but you got the earbuds on, and it's plugged into your phone. And you can sit there instead of calling somebody, you dial up Echo Vox and it's running, and sit it down and put it on record, so it's actually recording your session, so you can go back and listen to it. And you can sit there and talk nowadays. Now, 20 years ago, they'd lock you up. You're sitting there talking over your earbuds into a box. What are you doing, dude? Nowadays, people do it. People get hit by cars and killed because they're walking down the street, paying all their attention to their phone. They can't hear
Right.
what's around them. And so people in bars, as long as you got drink in front of you, uh, even if it's like you say, club soda with a twist of lemon or whatever, or like me with just a straight up Coke with some ice in it, they don't care. As long as they get a little bit of money, they'll let you keep your seat and get close to the fireplace, especially when it starts getting a little bit cooler. You got the energy. Of course, the spirit will follow energy,
Right.
and they can be sitting there uh, getting a little energy out of the fireplace. You can be sitting there getting a little warm by the fireplace. You get all cozy, and you're comfortable. The spirit's comfortable, and next thing you know, you're talking to a spirit, and you're having a rather lively conversation sitting there. And there's nobody but you sitting at the table, as far as anybody can see.
Are you
So
allowed
I
to
have
stay?
done that.
Are you allowed to stay at Lafitte's later on? Can you stay there after they shut down?
That depends on who's there. Uh, the manager, some managers frown on it. Some of them have been aggravated and ready to go home and don't want to tolerate it. Uh, Sometimes you can ask somebody, and they will let you, while they're cleaning up. You can stay there until they're ready to leave. Uh, I just remember the name of the other bar. It's the Pirate Bar, the other side of the big Catholic church there, and I did go in there and run some very quietly. There was no music playing. There was just me and the bartender making contact, and I actually made contact with several spirits. I had everything set for record, and the recordings got erased off my equipment. I was recording it two different ways, and both ways got erased. And that's not coincidence.
No, that happened.
One, I can see, uh, maybe I goofed, or maybe the machine just made a mistake, or I made a mistake, or something. But when you're recording it on two different devices, and that one recording gets erased off both devices, you got to wonder what's going on.
Oh, they're good at that. They
Yes.
manipulate equipment. They've been around it, for a long time. They probably some of the
Yeah.
things that
And
happened to me that happened when in GRS when we were at like places like St. Albans, uh, Mansfield Reformatory. Then you had down the road you had Madison Seminary. You had Poasttown Elementary. Those were four places that I walked into St. Albans and actually set up my camera on a tripod, shooting up the staircase, and they had motion detectors on the stairs. And I started the camera up. The camera was running. I turned around, walked down the stairs, and Dale came up to me later on and said, you better check your camera because the motion detectors went off. You probably caught something. And I said, well, I'll get back over there in a little bit because it was like a minefield the way people had equipment set up in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it was like I didn't want to screw in anybody's gear. So I stayed where
Right.
I was at, came back a little later on, and looked at the back of my camera.
Uh-huh.
It was on 0.
Zero.
Like I didn't even start it.
Like you didn't even turn it on.
Right.
Mm-mm-mm. Well, what are ghosts? They're a little bit of energy
Right.
floating around in a room. So if your energy, of course you can manipulate energy. And what's in the electronic device? Is as Captain America famously said in the first Avengers movie, it seems to run on some sort of electricity.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, there's a lot of places that I've been to.
Oh, and to Dark Horse Paranormal, the next destination the wife wants to stay at is the Lafitte Hotel, which is just across from the Lafitte bar. And I want to go there during the week when it's kind of slow there, because Lafitte's is kind of like it's not so much a touristy bar, though it has its share. It's more of a neighborhood bar, which means you have a lot of locals in there. You catch it during a week on a slower night with just 2 or 3 people in there, you can do some investigating in the place. And if you're staying across the street and they know you're staying across the street, that's the kind of wedge I want to use to do some investigating, maybe while they're closing. If I can stay in there after they lock the door and check out the place, or if they, it's very, very rare, but some investigators have managed to talk their way into going upstairs. And that's kind of where the action is as things go bump in the night, as you can ask almost any employee there. Some managers in the past have asked employees not to talk about it. You just got to talk to the right employee. And of course, the personnel changes, time to time you go there. So it just depends on what manager you have at a given time.
What would be the 3 locations around New Orleans that are the best ones you've been to?
Okay, I've been to. There's they don't have a tour going in there right now. You can't get in there anymore, but there was an old slave quarters there. A gentleman, a kid, I think he was 21 or 22, hung himself in the closet on the ground floor. When I investigated the place, I went upstairs, and it was just 2 of us. We were sitting there quietly on the couch, and I got it recorded, but I could also hear it with my bare ears. Uh, High heels with a female walking is distinctive on a hardwood floor.
Oh yeah.
That's a distinctive noise. And I heard it walking away from us. And you know me, I don't run, I don't hesitate, I don't run away. I went right to the place just to make sure there wasn't anybody hiding there to, kind of enhance my experience, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And there was nobody there but me and the guide, which is trying to pronounce his first name, Louis Shun. He's got a YouTube channel. He's an interesting guy. He does some historical stuff. He's not a big ghost believer, but I was in there with him, and he heard the footsteps and wasn't sure what it was, and I went right back there just to see if somebody had been planted back there to, like I say, enhance my experience. There was nobody there, and there was no female in high heels there that I could see, but I distinctly heard it. Downstairs, I was in there in the room where just a few feet from the closet where the gentleman committed suicide. And the tour guide walked out, and I was entertaining about 30 people in the room myself, like I was running the tour. And I had Echo Vox on, and I got him talking with the group. Tour guide walked in and said, "Wow, I haven't heard your voice in a long time. How come you don't talk to me?" And the spirit flat out said, "Because you talk too much." In front of about 30 people. And we all heard it because it come over my speaker loud and clear. Needless to say, there were several minutes of laughter right at that point. So that was an interesting place. One of the more interesting locations I investigated for 2 nights, all night long, was the Andrew Jackson Hotel. And you can imagine what that place is like.
Wow.
We had a ghost in our hotel room that while I was investigating other rooms, he was looking over my wife's shoulder as she was binge watching Game of Thrones for 2 nights. He was sitting there watching Game of Thrones with her.
Wow.
When we walked in the room, we found out his name. We call him by name. "Hey, how's it going? You know, we just got back from meeting." "Okay, how was it?" "We'll come back." So that was a rather amazing place, the Andrew Jackson Hotel. The beds were not the best in the world. The wife and I like a firm bed. These beds, you fall on them and you're sunk down all the way through the mattress, and you're laying on the box springs.
You go right to the middle.
You go right to the middle, and you go right down to the bottom of the mattress. You can look on either side of you and see mattress around your head.
You're either on the top or on the bottom.
Yeah, and so it's not the best beds in the place. It is one of the more expensive places in the quarter to stay, but it is quite haunted. Some of the rooms are more haunted than others. One gentleman was there, and he actually worked with Zach Bagans on Ghost Adventures, and he wanted some experiences of his own away from the group. So he was there, and I cannot swear that this is not a fake, but he walked in there and walked into one of the rooms and recorded a loud growl, and he ran out of the room screaming. He recorded it and played it back, and yes, there was a very loud growl that he had recorded, but I was not there when it was recorded. He could have done that. He could have easily faked that by just growling into his recorder himself. So I cannot swear for the validity of that event.
That's too bad.
I heard, yeah, because he was in there by himself. I was standing outside. I should have followed him in there. But I actually heard several growls from a couple of different rooms and a little bit of conversation. Some of the ghosts are kind of shy. You don't get a whole lot of action on your meters. A tri-field you might can get something on. Occasionally, K2s don't work that well there. On mail, you'll occasionally get a hit on in the Andrew Jackson.
Well, you got to have EMF all over the place in a place like that, don't you?
Yeah, because all the electricity's on.
The wires are probably 60 years old.
Some of these buildings are over 100 years old, and it's probably the original wiring when they took a like most of your hotels are former mansions, and they were wired when electricity first come out. And it's probably the original wiring in those places.
You would figure that they'd come through and do some sort of check, but you know, they leave wires in the walls and stuff. Who knows what's
Hmm.
really alive in there? You know,
Exactly. You don't know. Now, another place I went to was I got actually have a picture. Let's see. Okay, throw this up. This is from this is a wax figure was actually in the now torn down, completely destroyed uh, French Quarter Wax Museum. This is obviously a uniform. This is depicted in New Orleans.
were they the Federalists, weren't they? Wasn't that his army
I'm not.
with the breastplate like
It was the
that?
British Army.
Do
Hmm.
you think that's British? I think British.
I'm not.
British
I'm
is,
not sure.
like I said, I think it's the Federalist. It's like ours,
Okay.
like Andrew Jackson's, or
It,
his
right.
boys.
It could be some of it's. It could be some of Andrew Jackson's. This was taken with a full spectrum camera using only IR and a little bit of red light, so it's kind of hard to tell what color the uniform is. Uh, this is depicting a woman. I believe she's in a house. This is depicting from the slave era. This is a slave begging for food while he's being punished, if I'm not mistaken. Here are some of the people governing in New Orleans. I believe this is a past governor of the state. This is one of the more interesting and colorful uh, scenes that was in the Wax Museum. This is Napoleon in a tub. It wasn't any set scene. I guess he was in a sense of humor, couldn't figure out how to pose Napoleon. So he builds a wax figure of a naked Napoleon sitting in a tub. And there it is.
That's Bonaparte.
Uh, Napoleon Bonaparte, yes.
Wow.
Uh, I believe this was another scene. I forget. I've got it on video a little bit better of what each one of these scenes are.
That looked like that was he had a
Uh,
sword. Didn't he? Wasn't that the handle of his
yes,
sword?
I believe it was. A lot of these are kind of violence
No.
because there was quite a few clashes in New Orleans, not just the war. I believe this is another little clash between different factions in the area. This is a man and woman. This was less of a fighting scene and more of a setting up the city scene. And here's some of the background from the inside of the museum. That's the Irish legend, and that's the Irish legend. So that's was some of the wax museum. That was a rather well haunted place. Here's some of my equipment in the Andrew Jackson Hotel.
Wow.
But the Andrew Jackson was a very interesting place. But they locked me into the old French Quarter Wax Museum. Had a lot of conversation on an old car elevator because it used to be a. And they, after everybody else left, they locked me into the museum, lights off, by myself
Oh wow.
for
For how long?
2.5 hours. alone in a wax museum,
It had to be fun.
chatting with spirits the whole time. Oh yeah, I know a lot of people said there's no way they do it. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. You got to know when to have an open mind. You got to know when to be able to throw up a brick wall when somebody steps too far. And I didn't have to do that very often. The spirits were not giving me a hard time. They knew the place was going to be torn down, and I was the last investigator to really investigate the place because that was a Friday night. Saturday they had a private party for employees, and Sunday that's when the bidding started for all the wax figures. And Monday morning, a lot of the wax figures had left on Sunday and Sunday night, and by Monday 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, they were tearing down the place. It's now a 4 story condo building. They kept the facade, the brick facade for the old wax museum. They kept it for the front of the condo building.
Wow, that is really cool.
Now that was something that will never happen again
Yeah, we did.
because
We did.
the place is gone.
When we were at Madison, or when we were at Mansfield, and we were done with our investigation about 2 a.m. We had to do we had a challenge, and we all went up to it was the third tier, and it was the entrance from the library into the east cell block, and it was like a ramp that went down. And what happened was, is we had everybody in the group, and whoever wanted to go ahead, and what you had to do is you had to walk out the door, down the ramp onto the cell block that was pitch black, and you had to walk around the whole entire cell block. And it made a, it made a right hand turn and then a left hand turn, and then you went all the way down and did the same thing down there and came back. I don't remember the amount of cells. I don't think I want to know how many cells, but when he said, "Who wants to do it?" I says, "I'll do it," and I was going to be the first one. And then one of the ladies that was with us, she says, "Well, I want to do it." And I said, "Well, if you don't come back, well, then I don't have to go." So she took off and did it and went all the way around, came back, and I says, "Okay." The only thing I had in my hand was my voice recorder, and I have a real little one. But the point I'm trying to make is this is it here, and this is how big it is. It's just a real little one. I turned it on. I had it down on my side, and I started walking. And I went down the ramp and got down to the bottom and made the turn and came to the corner. And the only thing that was up there on the outside of the cells was a metal rail, a metal pipe that went up probably 3-4 feet, and a cable in between it. And that was all that was there. And you could very easily, if you made a wrong turn and you hit that, you're like 3 stories up. So I took my time. I got halfway down the first big run, and somebody was behind me walking. They were actually keeping up with me, and then I'd stop and they'd stop, and I'd start up again, and I got down further. But my inside arm, the one that was right by the cell entrances, was up like this because I had this feeling like somebody was going to jump out and I was going to just smash them with my arm. And I continued on, got down to the corner. As I was going around the corner, something grabbed my butt. And I kept on going. Now I'm going a little faster. But this whole time that I was going down that run, it just when you thought it couldn't get any darker, it got darker. That's how black it was in there. Got down, got touched, came around the corner, and I sort of did the fast bead going back this way, back towards the library. I got inside. I think Dale was like fourth or fifth, but it was like got in there, and the guy that was running the challenge said, "Okay, don't mention anything to anybody what happened." So what it was is that whole tier, that all the way around all those jail cells. What they did was they took the people that were not transgender, but they were homosexuals. They put them all in the corner down there, and when I went by, that's why I got grabbed. And I had no idea.
Maybe somebody liked your butt.
Well, when we got back, we were talking about it, and he says, "Well, what happened to you?" And I told him that, and he went ahead and says, "Well, where did this happen?" And I said, "Just down all the way to the big run, and then I was making the left-hand turn to go down that corner to come back this way." And I says, "That's where it happened." And he says, and he told me the story. He said they had them all together down there because they were out of sight and out of mind, and they had to fend for themselves. And the population didn't want anything to do with them. And that was the best place to put them because they weren't going to go out of their way to walk down there. You know what I mean? They didn't look at them the same way they do today. So it was crazy. And then I had pebbles thrown at me, probably 7 or 8 pebbles. And then as I was turning around, and this was in the West Cell block, now I'm starting to freak out a little bit because, I mean, there's the footsteps and then these pebbles are coming, and I'm going, well, that wasn't very far at all. You could tell by the velocity of what was being thrown. It was like it must have been maybe 4 feet away from me when they were heaving them.
Oh, wow.
And I turn around and I start walking back to where I came from. And I had my flashlight down on the ground like you normally do. So I don't look up, I don't want to get blinded. And all of a sudden I ran into something. And as I ran into it, my flashlight came up, and it was that cardboard cutout of Morgan Freeman from Shawshank, because that's where they did Shawshank, right? So they have cardboard
That's
cutouts.
where they filmed it.
And I ran right into it, and it just freaked the crap out of me.
I imagine it did.
Blood to the light.
Oh,
goosed.
One thing I didn't mention about two things I didn't mention about the Wax Museum. One area was dedicated to the old-fashioned Universal monsters. Had a depiction of Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein, the Invisible Man, the creature from the Black Lagoon. And if you want to see the videos, I actually, on Halloween, I had an 11-hour, believe it or not, I was on the computer. I actually had 2 computers running, one inside, one outside, all Halloween for over 11 hours. I think it was 11 hours and 20 some odd minutes. And that's all posted on my YouTube channel. So just look for the Halloween Spooktacular. I restarted one time. So I was about halfway through, at about 5, almost 6 hours. I shut down for a second, restarted, and put 11 hours and 20 some odd minutes in basically 2 5-hour videos, 5.5-hour videos. And I showed all the video I took of the Wax Museum investigation. So you can actually see some of the people I was interacting with and some of the voices that I got. Some of it's kind of hard to hear, but if you turn the volume up, put your headsets on, you can hear several of us talking to spirits. One girl had she was a little bit of a psychic, and she had her spirit guide with her, and the ghost said she could stay, but he would have to leave. Talking about her spirit guide, she had to leave the elevator for a little bit, and when she came back in, she had to ask permission to come back in. And he said, he cannot come back in here." And she came back in and left her spirit guide outside in the hallway, outside the door.
Why do you think that happened?
And for some reason, the spirit that we were talking to did not like her spirit guide. And she was outside for several minutes before she asked to come back in. And the spirit was adamant, no, that her guide had to stay outside. So she did come back in, but she did tell her spirit guide to stay outside the door.
Wow.
Which I found quite interesting. There were some of them that were kind of joking around. One was picking on a guy, and I said, "Okay, who is by this gentleman?" And a female came on and said, called the ghost by name. I believe it was Josh. I know it was Josh was the guy. Trying to remember the spirit's name. He is. So I called the spirit by name. I said, "Are you standing in front of Josh?" And got a solid, very loud yes. Because he held his K2 meter right in front of him and had 3 lights flashing on the K2 meter. He could move a few feet either side and it would just switch off. And he was a little bit of a skeptic, so he thought it was me. He thought my cell phone was setting it off, or I had some kind of electronic device on me setting the K2 meter off. But he read it up and down me. I turned around, he checked behind me. There was I didn't have a hidden phone or the kind of electronic equipment on me. He went back to where he was standing before, and the same thing went on. The lights were flashing on the K2. And then I got the spirit, the female spirit ratted out the male spirit, and then the male spirit did admit that he was standing in front of the guy. And that was I wish they'd kept it open. As far as who would want a naked Napoleon Bonaparte, I have no idea. Somebody who had got a lot more money than I have, maybe he has that in his living room currently. Because a wax figure, you got to kind of regulate the temperature. Obviously, this museum was underground. You had to walk down to get to it.
Wow.
So it was cooler.
Did you do any cemeteries there?
Okay.
I'm sorry. I
Marie
apologize.
Laveau. Oh, I was done. Marie Laveau, her tomb, the one she's buried in, they've had so much desecration of the tomb. They, at one point, they said if you paint 3 X's on her tomb and make a wish, she'll grant it. Which that's myth. But so they don't allow anyone to go in there unless you're on an official tour. And the time moves along, so it's kind of hard to do a little bit of ghost hunting unless again you've got the earphones plugged into your Echo Vox and you're walking through Echo Vox or SB7, whatever you want to use. If it looks like a radio or a cell phone, and you can do a little snoopy ghost hunting. Because they just don't allow much anymore. I can do anything I basically want to. Hmm?
Is that the cemetery
Do
that
what?
has is Morrison buried there? Jim Morrison?
Uh, yes, I believe that's the one. Jim Morrison. And you know how they bury him in New Orleans, right? The tomb is a
It's
family
above.
tomb, and they can't spread out. There's above ground, and what it is, they put a body in there, and I think it's 1 year or 2 years before you can put anybody else in the tomb. They basically put the body on a rack, seal the next person in the family dies. They've got to wait to I think maybe 2 years before another body can be buried in there. So they just drop the body down to the bottom of the tomb, whatever's left, bones, dust, whatever, or a whole body if it's been sitting in there just a couple of years. Then they shove another body in there to seal it back up.
What if you had a
And
family
that's how
of
the
all 4 or 5 people that died in a crash or something? How would they do that down
then
there?
you may have to have more. You would have to have more than one tomb. So you better have be a family of means when that happens.
And that's all
They're
because of the
very
flooding,
crowded.
correct?
Yes, the water table is so high. See, New Orleans is below sea level. The majority of it is. The French Quarter is actually one of the high places in New Orleans because I think it's about 6 inches over sea level, and that's a hill. So uh, uh, funerals there are very interesting. Marie Laveau is a very interesting person. We have talked with each other mainly because when I went to her tomb, I didn't draw on the tomb. I didn't do any graffiti. The guy leading the tour would not have let me if I tried, but I just left her a peace offering and just simply asked for permission to ghost hunt in New Orleans as I saw fit. And she actually visited me back here in Arkansas after that,
That was
and
awful
we've
nice of
become
you to do
kind
that.
of friends. Yeah, we've
What did
she's
what
kind
did
of
you
a
leave her?
spirit guide.
What did you leave her?
Okay, excellent question. She Her power was not witchcraft or hoodoo or voodoo. She may not have even been that well versed in voodoo. Her power was she was the best damn hairdresser in her time in the city of New Orleans. All the rich women went to her to get appointments with her for her to do their hair. They lined up for Marie Laveau to do their hair. And uh, I don't know if anybody here in the chat room has ever been to something like a Sports Clips or a high-end barber shop, or ladies, if you've been to the hairdresser. You get comfortable. You've gone to this person many times before. They're your regular hair person, and you get to talk. You get chatty. You don't have anything to do. You're having to sit still while your hair's done. So you tell your hairdresser stuff you wouldn't tell your bartender or your best friend or your mother. And that's where Marie Laveau's power was. She had all these ladies telling her all this gossip about everything that's going on. And when she knew something was happening, somebody didn't like something, something was planned, good or bad, she knew about it.
Huh.
So that's how she got her power. That was her superpower. Just listening, putting people at ease as she did their hair, and listened to them talk, and had a good enough memory to remember what they said.
Wow.
That's their superpower. And there is a possibility, I cannot prove this, but that my wife may very well be related to her.
Wow.
My father-in-law, of course, he's late now. He died just before we left Chicago. His family is from Louisiana. He was actually born and raised about 20-25 miles from here, over in Dumas, Arkansas. But the family, and many of his family still live down in Louisiana. So there is a possibility that he may be of some of Marie Laveau's relatives, of her descendants. Things happen.
If it's okay with you, can we go to like 12:30? Can we do that?
Well, that's only that's 12 minutes from now.
Right.
So, it might take that you're tapping out tonight.
I'm not. I can't. I've got to be up at the crack of dawn.
Ooh,
it's not. We're almost. Aren't we? We're past. Aren't we past the 2-hour mark?
Yes, we are. About 18 minutes.
Okay, so it would be 2.5 hours.
Yeah, about right. 2.5 hours. That's good. We are entering. You know where we are. We're entering a cooler. We're having a very cool time right now. As in, the highs here are 10 to 20 degrees below normal here, and we are entering a rainy period where we've had some rain the past few days, and we're going to have rain starting any minute almost, and it's going to rain through Tuesday night. So that's the little period we're in, and we're going to have a couple of highs in the 60s. A little bit of warmth coming up as the front comes down from the north, goes into Louisiana, and then comes back up, and of course it brings a whole bunch of damp Gulf air up here. And rain, is one thing, but you got to remember, I'm in southern Arkansas, which is about the same height as northern Louisiana, which means on a good day, I'm only 125 feet over sea level.
No.
So when it rains, sometimes it pours, and we're getting a lot of rain right now, and that's what's coming down. I am looking for something.
She says us too. Yep. New England.
Okay.
Wind.
Oh yeah. One thing I got to do, since we are 20 minutes into overtime, is show this. I don't know what jackass made that, but there it is.
That was mind-boggling. But you can see my eyes aren't open very much anymore. And I figured that, 12:30 would.
Yeah, we got about 9 minutes left. I woke up at 5 o'clock after sleeping about 3 hours, so it's not like I'm ready to go another hour myself. I'm getting a little tired. Plus, You see how bright this is behind me, right?
Yeah, that's got a,
Yeah, it looks kind of bright.
yeah.
This is almost all UV light.
Well, that's what you said earlier. But
So yeah, I
it's
guess
not
I'm
like
working
it's
on my
not like what
tan.
I've got.
You can see how bright it is. There's one of the UV lights I got here in my studio. There's
Oh.
3 of them.
Holy cow!
Big studio lights
You're
with
gonna
the
you're
UV.
gonna
You
end
see how
up
bright it is around the room.
you're gonna end up with a suntan.
Yeah. You see some of the stuff I got sitting around.
Yep.
Like go over here, you got little ghosties hanging around. You got try to keep it level. There's Bones there.
Yep.
He's the producer. And then I got my little over here. I don't know if you can see it or not. Right there under that light bulb.
Yeah.
That's my little memorial to Richard Crowe. That's some cards
Wow.
they passed out at his funeral. Some of Richard Crowe's pins. And it's got an American flag with it that was also passed at his funeral. So I've got a few pieces of Richard Crowe that I keep in here kind of as a memorial to him, because I believe we all learned a little bit from Richard Crowe.
Yeah.
One way or the other. He was a great man, a great investigator, the godfather to everybody, and anybody who met him liked him. And he was a man who never met a buffet he didn't like.
He was a big guy.
He was a big guy, and he loved a good buffet. I was in the Westerns with him, which is honoring Western lifestyle. And we got in several conversations during the Westerners talking about the Wild West, Wyatt Earp, things that go on in Arizona, Dodge City, Tombstone, places like that. Some things that have gone on here. You know that Wyatt Earp was actually arrested, jailed, and escaped probably a hanging because he was stole a horse after his first wife died. That happened in the movie Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner. They used Pine Bluff as the town that it happened. It did not happen in Pine Bluff. He did not come this far south. Pine Bluff's only about 30 miles from here. It happened in Eureka Springs, where, yes, the very haunted Crescent Hotel is. And it's also very close to Pea Ridge Battlefield in the northwest corner, quite a ways from here. But you've got a very haunted Crescent Hotel. There's another hotel, I forget the name of it, that's also there in Eureka Springs. That's quite a bit haunted. That's only a few miles from the Arkansas side of Pea Ridge, which was a battle where the Confederates had the Unions outnumbered almost 3-1 and still managed to lose it due to incompetence.
Oh, God.
So, yes, that's a place that's on my bucket list to investigate here in Arkansas, is to investigate the Pea Ridge Battlefield. Another one, I have not been in New Orleans. I've not gone to the Battle of New York. I've gone by it on a steamship, but I have not gone to the battlefield itself, where Andrew Jackson fought the British. That will be another goal, is to go over there and spend the whole day at that battlefield. And let's see if anybody's talkative. You know, the British spoke English. At least I think they spoke English. I don't know. I've talked to some British people, and I'm not sure what language they're speaking, but you should be able to stir up some kind of spirits there. You won't get many Americans. Not many Americans died, but quite a few British people did. So that'd be a very interesting place to investigate. Oops. We lost Greg. Wow. See if he wants to come back in. I'll stall for a minute. Maybe he went to sleep and his head fell on his off switch. Dark Horse Paranormal. There is a place called Texarkana. It is, like it says, right on the border of Texas and Arkansas, very close to Oklahoma. There's not, contrary to all of belief, there is just a small border between Arkansas and Texas. And Texarkana takes up a whole lot of that space, actually taking up the corner of the tri-state area of Texas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. So yes, there is very much a spot called Texarkana. Oh, you've been to Texarkana? Yeah, you're very close to being in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas all at one time. I imagine there's a spot where you can do that. I live about 3/4 of the width of Arkansas from that area. I'm in the southeast corner, a little place called Star City. I say in the intro, if you saw the my entry video, it said that I live in downtown metropolitan Cane Creek Township, and Star City. I actually live about 2 miles outside of Star City. Star City is a big metropolitan area of just over 2,200 people. Cane Creek Township is a little place out here that's got a fairly decent sized cemetery. It has one church across the street from the cemetery, not attached to it, so it's a cemetery. It's a kind of a hilly area. We live between the state park and the lake, Cane Creek Creek, and the Bartholomew Bayou. And yes, the Bartholomew Bayou used to have steamboats running up and down it. They said it was kind of hard. It's a smaller steamships, steamboats. Anything on a river is a boat, not a ship. So yes, I live within maybe a half mile of where riverboats used to go up and down the bayou. El Paso, that's on my bucket list. I have never really been to Texas. So that's one place I want to go to. That's why it's kind of interesting living here. It's you got the bayou. We have a man-made lake down the street. I can go fishing anytime I want to. It's where Cane Creek runs into the Bartholomew Bayou. They built a dike and backed up the bayou and the Cane Creek and made a nice lake, fishing lake out of it. They just got money granted to them to clean up the area, where hopefully in a few years you can go down here to Cane Creek Park, rent a kayak, and you can either go up the bayou to Pine Bluff, or you can go south and get about a third of the way down through Louisiana before it empties into a lake. They've already cleaned up the New Orleans side, the Louisiana side end of the bayou, and now Arkansas is about to start working on theirs, but it's going to take several years to get there. There's quite a bit of fishing here. The lake is full of snags, but it's also full of rather large fish. You go ahead and get your cane pole, a fishing hook, get your box of worms, and you just sit on the dock. You don't have to get out on a boat and go fishing. It is a campground. There is lots of water. There's lots of deer. And some people say this is Bigfoot country. We're kind of wide open spaces. You got some farmland here. I said I live in a house with 2,200 people in the nearby city. There's only about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, including my wife and I. There may be only about 20 to 25 people living on this road. And each one of us has a 4-acre lot. Guy behind me's got darn near 30 acres where he's building a ranch. He's got a big, nice ranch home back there. He's cleared all the land, so he's either going to have horses or cattle. I'm not sure which one. Oh, you for Paranormal Unity. That's it. That's it. What? Greg may not come back in because he said he wanted to shut it down at 12:30, so he may. Oh yeah, there's plenty of trees around here. He may not come back, and I may just go ahead and shut it down. Yeah, you said you're jealous. 6 or 7 years ago now, in 2015, my wife and I came down here on December 1st, which was today, and now yesterday, but it was today. Was our it started our 7th year here. So December 1st, 2015 is when we moved here to Arkansas. And where was I going with this? Oh, we looked around, and in February, March, probably it was March, we found this place. We bought this place for the going price of 4 acres of land and paid $18,500 for it. Like I said, that was the going price for 4 acres of land. The price hasn't changed all that much here. Trouble is, there was a house sitting on it. We got the house for free. So yes, I live in a 3-bedroom house. You saw a little bit of this room earlier. This is a 12 by 12 studio, we call it. I have a 12 by 15 den, about a 20 by 20 living room, a 5 by 10 laundry room. Our kitchen is a 12 by 24 feet kitchen. We have a 12 by 18 bedroom that has a 5 by 12 walk-in closet, and we put over and under bars to hang on all our clothes. Well, bedrooms, we only have one bed in, just 2 of us living here. And that's the 12 by 18 is our bedroom. The room I'm in now has a closet, so you could call this a bedroom. And our den, the reason it's 12 by 15 is because there's no closet there. There was no door when we moved in, so I just took down the framing of the door, and instead of having 12 by 12 room with a closet, it's a 12 by 15 room. In Chicago, we were paying $2,800 every 6 months for property taxes. Here we pay $200 for 4 acres. And people ask why we moved to Arkansas. I have accepted your invite. It's nice to meet you. Oh, you lived in Daytona Beach. I've lived in only place I lived is in Jacksonville, Florida. When I was a kid, uh, I had an aunt down there with that lived on Jacksonville Beach. So yes, I was living on the Atlantic side of Florida, right on the beach for a while. And the neighbor of the uncle, I was there with an aunt. Uh, his neighbor had a, would you believe, Leakey's boatyard. He ran some tugboats, and I was down there at 8, 9, 10 years old, working on tugboats out of the Navy station, shoving around Navy vessels with a tugboat. Okay, I'm saying Greg's not coming back. I think he was getting sleepy. I need to shut down. Let me get out of here. I appreciate all the people in the chat room. Appreciate our guest, Greg Cost. He will be back the 15th. We'll have another show. We're going to maybe look at a couple of videos, and maybe we'll have a little demonstration of the methods that he used in his investigation. I said thank you for everybody who's shown up tonight. We're going ahead and get out of here. I need to go to bed. I am quite tired myself. So, Bones, get us the hell out of here and take us home. And just remember, everyone, the paranormal never sleeps. Gets a little tired, may be resting sometimes, but it never sleeps.
Thanks for watching our show. Be sure to tune in to next week as once again we journey way down south into Bayou Country for another heaping portion of Southern Fried Paranormal with Len Dorman and Bones. Make sure to like, share, and follow. Y'all come back now. You hear?
Good night, everybody.